Hey guys, it's Eddie here. So 2023 has already started off with a bang. Burglars are calling 911 to get the police to help them with moving their stolen belongings. New York City is finding its own mayor for rats in his home, and we've just seen the worst housing decline on record, coming in at an outrageous 35% drop. So buying a home in 2023 is going to look a lot different than the past years. It's almost like we're entering the 8th season of Game of Thrones, where you've seen this story gradually decline over the seasons, but you think, hey, it can't get any worse than it's already gotten, right? Then you read the housing reports, and you see that home prices have now dropped for the 4th straight month. And if you watch the news, you're led to believe that once this is all over, just like Daenerys, if you are to survive, you'll just be the Queen of Ash. Seriously, they're so dramatic. That's why I think it's crucial for us to break down the numbers and look through the most recent forecast in 2023 for where housing markets could decline, where they'll remain steady, and most importantly, discuss the best ways you can take advantage of a housing market downturn. So whether you're currently in the market to buy a home, sell your home, or you just want to bask in the pleasure of watching it all crumble, stay tuned for your all-inclusive guide to the 2023 housing market. Before we get into that, if you could please hit that like button, or if you haven't already clicked subscribe, it would mean a lot to me because just by doing so, it could help increase the engagement on this video by 30 to 40%. So the first thing we need to discuss is data. And much like that one friend who always calls you to tell you that they're in traffic, data is always lagging. In most cases, data is lagging by 2 to 3 months, which means when you're reading or viewing housing reports on the news, they're going off data that is being reported from a few months prior. Why this is important is because we're in a rapidly shifting market that has twists and turns coming at us very quickly. What might look like a massive drop-off in housing prices from 2 to 3 months ago may have already been mitigated by a strong inflation report and subsequent rate decreases. But the news will spread from this fear anyway. We've seen this story before. Interest rates rising and therefore housing prices falling along with it and falling. However, we're in a bit of a unique situation we've never seen before, which is that most homeowners are locked into COVID rates of 4% or lower and therefore don't feel the need to sell. And with the median housing price being at $454,000, to put it simply, buyers cannot afford to buy the few homes that are on the market at the interest rates being offered today. So what we end up with is a standstill. How we correctly indicate that most people cannot afford these payments is by looking at the indicators outside of the real estate industry. The Wall Street Journal recently reported that demand has sharply decreased amongst a lot of sectors, including cars, demand for goods, the consumption of gas, and even home projects. This is a result of people having less disposable income to spend on their day-to-day lives. Think about it, if your paycheck hasn't been affected since COVID started, and you're still bringing home $5,000 a month, but your cost of living has gone up from $2,000 to $3,000 a month because of the inflation, you now have less disposable income to put towards housing. However, with interest rates having risen, you now would need more disposable income to be able to afford these monthly payments. So as you begin to spend less money, companies begin to scale back production and lay off more employees because they're selling less goods, which increases our employment rate as a whole and puts us in a full-blown recession. This might be the kickstart indicator to more inventory hitting the market, which would be people losing their jobs. Now let's look at the inventory issue. Redfin found that the number of homes listed for sale increased by 15% year over year, which is actually the largest increase on record. However, let's look at that a little closer. In December of 2022, there were 73,000 homes for sale in California, up 12% year over year. However, the number of newly listed homes was at 13,000 and down 37% year over year. So the 12% uptick in inventory leaves us shorter than it did in January of 2022. That's why it's important when you're reading the headlines to get the full picture rather than listening to the narrative being peddled blindly. Ultimately, we're still in a severe shortage of inventory, which will ultimately serve to stabilize prices rather than result in a massive drop-off. The analytics company CoreLogic forecasts that housing prices will actually continue to rise by another 4.1% through October of this year. Although in fairness, they often adjust and correct their numbers on a monthly basis, so I would take that one with a grain of salt. In terms of the overall housing values, the general consensus seems to be that appreciation is local, and even though coastal markets are likely to see a potential 5 to 10% drop, other parts of the country stay the same or get even more expensive as rates continue to stabilize this year. So where are interest rates going? Well, the Fed has expected that they're going to continue to raise the Fed funds rate upwards of somewhere around 5.1%. Much of that has already been baked in with regards to the interest rate traders. So unless you see some huge spike in inflation numbers coming in way higher than reported, you're not likely to see a big change in interest rate. In fact, as the inflation reports begin to decrease, which is already happening, you're going to see interest rates come down as well, hopefully somewhere in the 5s by the end of the year. I also believe that the Fed is likely to pause interest rate hikes somewhere in the first quarter of 2023, as long as inflation numbers continue to go down. So what does that actually mean for housing prices? Well, I believe that housing is actually going to remain somewhat stable across the nation this year as we gain our footing again from a tumultuous 3-year stretch. Once that period of stabilization has settled in, we will then see a more normal appreciation schedule and market that we were used to prior to the pandemic. Now, as we get into 2023, they're going to compare the numbers from 2022 to the data of 2023. While we don't even know what's going to happen in the first quarter of 2023, I can tell you year over year, it's not going to report well. And that's just based on the way that they actually report that data. In fact, much of the declines that are going to be reported in those numbers have already taken place. So I guess what I'm saying here is just don't get caught up in what the news is reporting.
Are we going to have to go to a commercial?
No, we're going to get it. We're going to get it.
Look at the context and look a little deeper to make sure you actually understand what the market is doing so you can make the best decision for yourself. Finally, let's talk about inventory. Typically, you don't see the market to heat up until somewhere right around the Super Bowl. So maybe mid-February, you'll start to see homes come onto the market and you're likely to see that trend continue through the middle of the summer. Now, the caveat to that is that if interest rates stay high, they stay where they are right now, say somewhere around 6 and 6.5%, you're not likely to see a huge amount of inventory come to the market because of the hunkering down method we spoke about before, which is that people don't want to give up their historically low interest rates to move into a home with a much higher rate and monthly payment. Therefore, they won't even list their home for sale. But if you do see some of the interest rates come down somewhere in the low 5% range, that could actually stir up some more inventory coming to the market. Because there's some people that are in properties right now that would be sellers if the payments made sense if they found the right property out there for them. So what do you think? Will housing prices crash and tumble this year? Or will we see a return to normality and a stable market? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and you guys have a wonderful start to the year. Let's hit the ground running.